A night that changed everything, the crystal chandeliers of the Riverside Hotel ballroom cast dancing shadows across the polished marble floor. Jade Monroe stood near the champagne fountain, gripping her glass so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The emerald dress she had borrowed from her roommate fit perfectly, but inside she felt like an imposter among Chicago's elite. 6 months ago, she had left her small Texas town with nothing but a business degree and a heart full of dreams. Now, as a marketing coordinator at Harrison Global Industries, she had been invited to this charity gala more out of courtesy than genuine recognition. The room buzzed with power. Deals worth millions were sealed with handshakes. Reputations were built or destroyed with a single whisper. Jade watched as women in designer gowns glided past, their jewelry probably worth more than her annual salary. She took a sip of champagne, trying to calm her nerves, when a voice she had hoped never to hear again cut through the noise. Ghost from the past, Jade. Darling, you look absolutely stunning tonight. The familiar drawl made her blood run cold. She turned slowly to find Trevor Walsh standing before her, his perfect smile as fake as ever. His blonde hair was styled immaculately. His custom suit probably cost more than her rent for 3 months. Everything about him screamed old money and entitlement. "Hello, Trevor," Jade said, keeping her voice steady even as her heart raced. She met his blue eyes, the same ones that had once promised her forever, now cold and calculating. "I heard you landed a job at Harrison Global," he continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "Marketing coordinator, right? How sweet. Everyone has to start somewhere, I suppose." He paused, letting the insult sink in. "My position at Walsh Financial came a bit more naturally, as you know." Beside him stood a woman with sharp features and an even sharper expression. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her designer dress probably cost more than Jade's car. This was Camille Durand, daughter of a banking tycoon. And according to the society pages, Jade had tortured herself by reading Trevor's new fiancée. The same woman he had been seeing behind Jade's back for the last 6 months of their relationship. The humiliation Jade felt the heat rising to her cheeks. But she refused to give Trevor the satisfaction of seeing her flustered. "Some of us prefer to earn our positions through hard work rather than nepotism," she replied coolly. The barb hit its mark. Trevor's jaw tightened momentarily before he recovered. Camille, however, let out a tinkling laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "What an ambitious little thing you are," she said, touching Trevor's arm possessively. The enormous diamond on her finger caught the light, practically blinding. "It must be so difficult watching him move on and be so happy without you." The words cut deep, exactly as intended. Jade could feel eyes turning toward them, curious and judgmental. In this world of social hierarchy, she was losing ground fast. Her hard-earned reputation could crumble in seconds if she did not do something. Anything to show she was not the pathetic, abandoned girl they clearly thought she was. A desperate plan, actually. Jade heard herself say before her brain could catch up, "I am not alone tonight either." The lie escaped her lips so smoothly it surprised even her. She had no idea where this was going, but staying silent felt like surrendering. Jade Monroe had not come this far to surrender now. Trevor raised an eyebrow, amusement playing across his face. "Really? And where is this mystery man of yours?" Probably wondering where his date disappeared to, Camille added with mock concern. Her smile was pure venom. Jade's mind raced as she scanned the ballroom desperately. She needed someone, anyone, to play along for just a few minutes. Just long enough to save face and walk away with her dignity intact. Then her eyes landed on a figure standing alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the glittering Chicago skyline. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that spoke of wealth and power. Even from across the room, he radiated confidence and something else, something almost dangerous. He stood with his back to the crowd, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city as if the hundreds of people behind him did not exist at all. The stranger gathering every ounce of courage she possessed, Jade straightened her spine and began walking toward him. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. This was insane. She was about to ask a complete stranger to kiss her in front of her ex-boyfriend and half of Chicago's business elite. But the alternative, standing there and taking their mockery, felt infinitely worse. "Excuse me," she whispered when she reached him, her voice barely audible over the string quartet playing in the background. The man turned, and Jade's breath caught in her throat. He was not just handsome. He was devastatingly, almost unfairly attractive. His dark hair was styled casually, like he had run his fingers through it, and it had fallen perfectly into place. His eyes were a striking gray, the color of storm clouds, and they studied her with an intensity that made her knees weak. A strong jaw, full lips, and features that could have been carved from marble completed the picture. This was a man used to getting what he wanted. The request, "I know this sounds completely crazy." Jade rushed on, aware that she only had seconds before her nerve failed entirely. "But I need you to do me a favor. A huge favor. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend for about 30 seconds. Just one kiss, that is all. Please." The stranger said nothing. He simply looked at her, his gray eyes moving from her face to where Trevor and Camille stood watching, then back to her again. Jade could see him calculating, weighing options, reading the situation with the skill of someone used to making quick decisions. "One kiss," she repeated desperately, lowering her voice even further. "My ex is over there, and I need him to understand that I have moved on too, that I am happy, that I am not alone." For a long moment the man remained silent. Then something shifted in his expression. Not quite sympathy, but perhaps understanding. He had been watching her, Jade realized. He had seen the confrontation, understood the dynamics at play, the kiss that changed everything. "What is your name?" His voice was deep, smooth, with an authority that sent shivers down her spine. This was not a man who asked for anything. This was a man who commanded. Jade Monroe," she breathed, acutely aware of how close they were standing now. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and intoxicating, cedar and spice, and something uniquely him. "Well, Jade Monroe," he said, and the corner of his mouth lifted in the ghost of a smile. "I suppose one kiss will not kill me." Before she could respond, before she could even process what was happening, his hand cupped her cheek with unexpected gentleness. His thumb brushed along her cheekbone, sending electricity racing through her body. Her heart stopped, then started again at triple speed. "Ready?" he murmured, his face now inches from hers. She could feel the warmth of his breath, see the darker flecks in his gray eyes. Jade managed only a nod. Then his lips were on hers, and the entire world disappeared. The kiss was nothing like she expected. Not rushed or awkward or performative. It was slow, deliberate, confident. His lips moved against hers with practiced skill, drawing a response from her that was entirely involuntary. One hand remained on her cheek while the other slid around her waist, pulling her closer. Jade found her fingers clutching the lapels of his tuxedo, kissing him back with an intensity that shocked her. This was supposed to be fake, pretend to show for her ex. But there was nothing fake about the way her body responded to his touch. Nothing pretend about the heat building between them, or the way time seemed to stop. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Jade felt dizzy, her lips tingling, her entire body humming with awareness. "Aftermath, thank you," she whispered, her voice shaky. Behind him, she could see Trevor's face, frozen in shock. Camille looked furious. Several other guests had turned to watch, whispering behind their hands. Mission accomplished, she supposed. But somehow, the victory felt hollow compared to what she had just experienced. "Always happy to help a lady in distress," the stranger replied, his thumb still gently caressing her cheek. "Tell me, Jade, do you make a habit of kissing strangers at charity galas?" "This is a first," she admitted with a nervous laugh. "I am not usually this bold. Or this desperate. Desperate is the wrong word. I would say courageous." His eyes held hers, and something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. "Your ex is an idiot, by the way. It really is," Jade agreed. Surprised by how easy it was to talk to this man, this stranger who had just kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. "Jade," he said her name like he was testing how it felt on his tongue. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Somewhere without an audience, where we can talk like normal people instead of players in whatever drama that was. She should say no. Men who looked like him, who carried themselves with that level of confidence and wore suits that expensive, did not date small-town marketing coordinators. This was clearly someone important, someone powerful. Getting involved would be complicated at best, disastrous at worst. Why? She found herself asking instead, "Why would you want to have dinner with me?" He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from handsome to absolutely breathtaking. "Let me just say you have sparked my curiosity. I want to know more about the woman brave enough to walk up to a complete stranger and ask for a kiss to make her ex jealous. That takes guts." Jade rattled off her address before she could overthink it. He pulled out his phone, typing quickly with practiced efficiency. When he looked up again, his expression had returned to that unreadable mask, though his eyes still held warmth. "Tomorrow at 7, then? I will pick you up." "I do not even know your name," Jade protested, suddenly aware of how bizarre this entire situation was. "Tomorrow," he said again, already turning away. She watched as he moved through the crowd with the fluid grace of someone used to commanding space, people unconsciously stepping aside to let him pass. He disappeared into the throng, leaving Jade standing alone, her lips still burning from his kiss, her mind spinning with questions. The long night, the rest of the gala passed in a blur. Trevor attempted to approach her twice more, but Jade expertly avoided him, keeping to the edges of the room. Camille watched her with narrowed eyes, clearly trying to figure out who the mystery man was. Let them wonder, Jade thought. For once she had the upper hand. Even if she had no idea what she had just gotten herself into, by the time she climbed into a taxi at midnight, the adrenaline was fading, replaced by a mixture of disbelief and anticipation. She had kissed a stranger, agreed to dinner with a man whose name she did not know. Either this was the most romantic thing that had ever happened to her, or she had made a terrible mistake. As the city lights blurred past the taxi window, Jade touched her lips, remembering the feel of his mouth on hers, the strength of his arms, the scent of his cologne. Tomorrow could not come fast enough. She had no idea who he was or what would happen next. But for the first time in months, since Trevor had shattered her heart and her confidence, Jade felt truly alive. Whatever came next, whoever this stranger turned out to be, she was ready. Or at least, she hoped she was. Monday morning reality. Jade spent the entire weekend in a state of nervous anticipation that made concentrating on anything impossible. She tried watching movies, cleaning her apartment, even attempting to read, but her mind kept wandering back to Saturday night. The mysterious stranger's kiss. His storm-gray eyes. The dinner date looming on Monday evening. She changed outfits at least 7 times Sunday night, finally settling on a simple navy dress that worked for both the office and an evening out. Monday morning arrived with typical Chicago weather. Gray skies threatening rain. Jade took extra care with her makeup, hoping to look professional yet attractive. She arrived at Harrison Global Industries 15 minutes early, using her badge to enter through the gleaming glass doors of the downtown, a skyscraper that housed one of the Midwest's most successful corporations. The building was a monument to modern architecture, all steel and glass rising 40 stories into the sky. Harrison Global had started as a small manufacturing company 60 years ago, and had grown into an international conglomerate dealing in everything from technology to real estate. Working here was a dream come true for Jade. Even if she was still near the bottom of the corporate ladder, the announcement she had barely settled at her desk, when her supervisor, Monica Chen, appeared with an urgent expression. "Conference room in 5 minutes. Mandatory meeting for all marketing staff. The CEO is making a big announcement." Jade grabbed her tablet and followed the stream of employees heading toward the main conference room on the 20th floor. The space was already packed, people standing along the walls when the seats filled up. There was an electric buzz in the air, the kind that came with major corporate news. Richard Harrison, the founder and CEO, stood at the front of the room. He was in his early 60s, with silver hair and the commanding presence of someone who had built an empire from nothing. Beside him stood a younger man, and Jade's heart stopped completely. It was him, the stranger from the gala. Her mystery man stood there in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, looking every bit as devastating as he had in his tuxedo. But now, in the harsh, fluorescent lights of the conference room, she could see him clearly, could see the way everyone in the room looked at him with a mixture of respect and nervousness. "Good morning, everyone," Richard began, his voice carrying authority. "I want to introduce you to my son, Blake Harrison. Many of you know he has been running our European operations from London for the past 5 years. As of today, Blake is returning as our Chief Operating Officer. He will be overseeing all domestic operations as I begin transitioning toward retirement." The room erupted in polite applause. Jade felt frozen, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. Blake Harrison, the CEO's son, her new boss, essentially, and she had kissed him, had agreed to have dinner with him tonight, had spent the entire weekend fantasizing about a man who is now standing at the front of the room, about to become one of the most powerful people in her professional life. The professional. Mask Blake's eyes swept across the room, and for just a fraction of a second, they landed on her. Something flickered in his expression, recognition mixed with something darker, more complicated. Then his professional mask slid back into place, and he began speaking about his vision for the company, his plans for expansion, his commitment to innovation and employee development. His voice was the same one that had whispered in her ear on Saturday night, asking her name, promising dinner. But now it carried a different weight. This was not the playful stranger who had saved her from humiliation. This was Blake Harrison, heir to a billion-dollar empire. She was Jade Monroe, a coordinator who made $38,000 a year. The meeting lasted 45 minutes. Blake outlined restructuring plans, new initiatives, efficiency improvements. He was articulate, confident, clearly brilliant at what he did. Jade tried to focus on his words, but all she could think about was his hands on her waist, his lips on hers, the way her entire body had responded to his touch. When the meeting finally ended, Jade tried to slip out quickly, but Monica caught her arm. "Did you see him? Blake Harrison is even more gorgeous in person than in the business magazines. And single, according to every article I have read. Half the women in this building are already planning how to get his attention." Jade forced a smile, her stomach churning. "He seems very professional. Professional and perfect," Monica sighed. "Not that someone like him would ever look twice at regular employees like us. Men at that level date models and heiresses, not marketing coordinators from Texas." Oh. The words stung, even though Jade knew they were probably true. What had she been thinking? That a kiss at a charity gala meant something? That a dinner invitation was anything more than a rich man's momentary amusement? The summons she made it back to her desk and tried to focus on the campaign proposal she was developing for a new client. But her phone buzzed after only 20 minutes. An email from an address she did not recognize, sent to her personal email rather than her work account. "Jade, we need to talk before tonight. Conference room for B on the executive floor. It is empty until noon. Come now if you can. Blake." Her hands trembled as she read the message. The executive floor, where only senior management had access. She should not go. This was already too complicated, too dangerous for her career. But her feet were moving before her brain could argue, carrying her to the elevator. Pressing the button for the 38th floor, the executive level was quiet. Carpeted in plush gray, with original artwork on the walls. Conference room for B was at the end of a long hallway. Jade checked to make sure no one was watching before slipping inside. Blake stood by the windows, his back to her, exactly like he had been standing at the gala. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. "Close the door," he said quietly. Not an order, but not quite a request either. The conversation Jadid did as he asked, her heart pounding. "You knew," she said, unable to keep the accusation from her voice. "On Saturday, you knew who I was." "Yes," he admitted without hesitation. "I reviewed files on all department heads and promising junior staff before the gala. Your photo was in the marketing portfolio. I recognized you immediately when you walked up to me." The admission hit her like a physical blow. "So this was all a game to you?" Some kind of entertainment for a bored billionaire? No. He moved closer, and she had to fight the urge to step back. If it was a game, I would not be standing here right now, risking everything. I would have laughed it off, forgotten about you, moved on. Then what was it? Jade demanded, surprised by her own boldness. Why did you help me? Why did you kiss me like that if you knew it would complicate everything? Blake ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of frustration she had seen from him. Because watching you walk across that room so brave and terrified at the same time, asking a stranger for help rather than let your ex see you broken, that took courage. And when you looked at me, you did not see Blake Harrison, CEO's son, corporate heir. You just saw a man who could help you. Do you have any idea how rare that is? The truth, his words hung in the air between them. Jade wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. What about dinner tonight? Are we still doing that, or was that invitation made under false pretenses? I want to have dinner with you more than I have wanted anything in a long time, Blake said, and the intensity in his voice made her shiver. But I need you to understand what that means. If we do this, if we pursue whatever this is between us, there will be consequences. People will talk. They will say you are sleeping your way up the corporate ladder. They will question every success you have, every promotion, every achievement. That is, if I have any successes, Jade said bitterly. How can I prove myself now? Anything I accomplish will be tainted by our connection. Which is why we need to be careful, Blake said. Smart about this? We keep it private, at least until you have established yourself independently. No one can know we are involved until you have built a reputation that cannot be questioned. The suggestion made sense logically, but something about it made Jade's heart sink. So we sneak around? Pretend we barely know each other at work while we are together outside. For now, until the timing is right. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne again, that intoxicating scent that made her dizzy. Jade, I have spent my entire life doing what was expected, following the rules, being the perfect heir. Then you walked up to me and asked for something completely insane, and for the first time in years, I felt alive. I am not ready to give that up. The decision. Jade looked into his gray eyes, seeing the sincerity there, but also the complexity of what he was proposing. A secret relationship with her boss's son? Sneaking around, lying by omission, risking everything she had worked for? It was crazy, reckless, potentially career-ending. But she also remembered how she felt when he kissed her. The electricity, the connection, the sense that something significant was happening. She had moved to Chicago to take risks, to build a life bigger than what her small town offered. Maybe this was part of that journey, even if it scared her. Okay, she heard herself say. We will try this. But I have conditions too. Blake's eyebrow rose. Go ahead. First, you do not give me any special treatment at work. No preferential assignments, no insider information, nothing that could compromise my integrity. Second, if this starts affecting my work or my reputation, we stop immediately. And third, we are honest with each other, even when it is hard. No games, no manipulation, no using this against each other. A smile tugged at his lips. Deal? Anything else? Yes. Tonight's dinner happens as planned. I want to know who Blake Harrison really is, not the corporate executive, not the CEO's son. Just the man who kissed me like the world was ending. That, Blake said softly, I can definitely do. The first secret. They left the conference room separately, Blake first, then Jade 5 minutes later. As she walked back to her desk, she felt like she was living in two different realities. In one, she was Jade Monroe, hardworking marketing coordinator trying to build a career. In the other, she was a woman about to embark on a secret romance with one of the most powerful men in Chicago. The rest of the day crawled by. Jade threw herself into work, determined to prove that her professional performance would not suffer. She finalized the client proposal, collaborated on a social media strategy, and even volunteered to take on an extra project that no one else wanted. If people were going to question her abilities eventually, she would make damn sure her work spoke for itself. At 6:30, she headed home to change. Blake had texted her the address of a restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. It's a kind of place that did not attract attention or gossip columnists. She chose a simple black dress, elegant but understated, and took a taxi to avoid any chance of running into colleagues on public transportation. The Real Blake the restaurant was small, intimate, with maybe 15 tables and soft jazz playing in the background. Blake was already there, seated in a corner booth that offered privacy. He stood when she arrived, and the smile on his face was genuine, warm, nothing like his corporate expression. "You look beautiful," he said, helping her into her seat. "You clean up nice yourself," Jade replied, noting that he had changed from his suit into dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even more striking. They ordered wine, and as the evening unfolded, Jade discovered layers to Blake she never expected. He talked about growing up in his father's shadow, the pressure of expectations, the loneliness of always having to be perfect. He told her about his mother, who had died when he was young, and how her loss had shaped his relationship with his father. "Richard Harrison is not an easy man to please," Blake admitted. "Nothing I do is ever quite good enough. When I managed the London expansion and increased revenues by 40%, he said I should have hit 50. When I negotiated the merger with Patterson Industries, he questioned my timeline. I have spent 32 years trying to earn his approval, and I am not sure I ever will." Jade reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "Maybe you are trying to win the wrong approval. What about your own? Are you proud of what you have accomplished?" Blake looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. "I do not think anyone has ever asked me that before. Well, I am asking. Not as an employee, not as someone impressed by your title or your name, just as someone who wants to know you." The confession, he was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "There was someone else once. Her name was Natalie. We were together for 2 years while I was in London. I thought she loved me. I thought we were building something real. Then I found out she was feeding confidential information to a competitor, using our relationship to gain access to company secrets." The pain in his voice was raw, real. Jade squeezed his hand. "Blake, I am so sorry. The worst part was realizing how blind I had been. Everyone warned me, including my father, but I did not want to see it. I wanted so badly for someone to love me for me, not for what I could give them." He met her eyes. "That is why Saturday night meant something. You did not know who I was, what I had. You just needed help, and I gave it. For once, I was just a guy helping a girl. Nothing more complicated than that. Except now it is complicated," Jade said softly. "Yes, but maybe the good things are supposed to be complicated. Maybe easy is overrated." They talked for hours, until the restaurant staff was clearly waiting for them to leave. Blake insisted on taking her home, and they shared a taxi, sitting close but not touching. Aware of the driver's eyes in the rearview mirror, the good night outside her apartment building, Blake walked her to the door. The streetlights cast golden pools on the sidewalk, and somewhere in the distance, the city hummed with late-night energy. "Thank you for tonight," Jade said, "for being real with me. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a name and a title." Blake cupped her face gently, the same way he had at the gala. "This will not be easy, Jade, keeping us a secret, balancing work and whatever this is. There will be times when it is frustrating, when you wonder if it is worth it." "Is it worth it?" she asked, her heart racing as he leaned closer. "Ask me again after this," he murmured, and then he was kissing her again, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jade knew she had her answer. "Same time next week?" Blake asked, his forehead resting against hers. "You better believe it. Harrison." She watched him walk away, disappearing into the night, and smiled despite the complications, despite the risks. Despite everything, her logical brain was screaming at her. Sometimes the best things in life required a leap of faith, and Jade Monroe had never been one to play it safe. 6 weeks of secrets. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful deception. At work, Jade and Blake maintained perfect professional distance. They addressed each other formally in meetings, never made eye contact longer than necessary, and never, ever were alone together in a way that could raise suspicions. But outside the office, they built something real. quiet dinners and out-of-the-way restaurants. Walks along the lakefront after dark. Weekends at Blake's penthouse where they could be themselves without fear of discovery. Jade learned that Blake played piano beautifully, that he collected first edition books, that he could cook surprisingly well for someone who had grown up with household. Staff Blake learned that Jade was fiercely independent, that she sent half her paycheck home to help her younger sister with college, that she dreamed of one day running her own marketing agency. They talked about everything from philosophy to favorite movies, from childhood memories to future aspirations. I have never been able to just talk to someone like this, Blake admitted one Sunday morning as they lay tangled together in his bed. Sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. With you, I do not have to perform or prove anything. I can just be. Jade kissed his shoulder. That is what relationships are supposed to be, Blake. To people who see each other completely and choose to stay anyway. But the secrecy was wearing on both of them. Jade hated lying to her coworkers, especially Monica, who had become a genuine friend. Blake struggled with keeping his distance at work when all he wanted was to pull Jade into his office and kiss her senseless. The strain was beginning to show. The promotion, everything came to a head on a Wednesday in late November. Jade was called into a meeting with the senior marketing director, Patricia Walsh, a formidable woman in her 50s who had built the department from the ground up. Jade, your work on the Morrison account was exceptional, Patricia began. The client was thrilled with your strategy, and we have seen a 28% increase in their engagement metrics. That kind of result does not go unnoticed. Jade felt pride swell in her chest. The Morrison project had consumed her life for 3 weeks, late nights and weekends spent perfecting every detail. She had deliberately chosen it because Blake had no involvement whatsoever, wanting to prove her abilities independently. Thank you, Patricia. I worked really hard on that campaign. It shows. Which is why I'm promoting you to Senior Marketing Coordinator, effective immediately. You will take lead on the Denton Industries pitch next month, and if that goes well, we will be looking at an Associate Director position by spring. Jade left the meeting floating on air. She had done it. Earned a promotion based purely on merit, with no connection to Blake whatsoever. She could not wait to tell him, but they had agreed to no personal texts or calls during work hours. It would have to wait until tonight. The rumors, but by lunchtime, the celebration had soured. Jade was in the break room getting coffee when she overheard 2 colleagues from accounting talking in low voices. Not realizing she was on the other side of the tall cabinet, did you hear about Jade Monroe's promotion? Pretty convenient timing, considering. Considering what? The other voice asked, considering she's been seen leaving Blake Harrison's building multiple times. My friend lives in that neighborhood and swears she saw them together last weekend. Very cozy looking. Jade's blood ran cold. They had been so careful. How could anyone have seen them? You think she is sleeping with the boss's son? The disbelief was clear. Why else would a junior coordinator get promoted so fast? Patricia Walsh does not hand out promotions like candy. Someone had to put in a good word for her, and I bet I know who. Jade set down her coffee mug carefully, afraid her shaking hands would drop it. She walked back to her desk in a daze. The promotion that had felt like such a victory now tainted by implication. Monica appeared at her cubicle minutes later, looking concerned. Jade, are you okay? You look pale. I am fine, Jade lied. Just a headache. Listen, I need to tell you something. Monica glanced around to make sure no one was listening. People are talking. About you and Blake Harrison? I do not believe it, but you should know the rumors are spreading. There is nothing between us, Jade said automatically, hating the lie even as it left her mouth. Monica studied her face. Okay, but if there was, hypothetically, you should know that it will not stay secret much longer. This place is a gossip mill, and anything involving the Harrison family gets magnified 100 times. The decision that evening? Jade went straight to Blake's penthouse, using the private elevator he had given her access to. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. What happened? She told him everything. The promotion, the overheard conversation, Monica's warning. When she finished, Blake's jaw was clenched tight, anger radiating from him. This is exactly what I was afraid of, he said. Your accomplishments being attributed to me instead of your own hard work. Jade, that promotion was 100% earned. Patricia does not care who I am dating or not dating. She promotes based on results, period.
I know that.
But no one else will. They will all think I slept my way into the position. Everything I have worked for is being reduced to office gossip. Blake pulled her close again, so we stop hiding. We come clean. Deal with whatever fallout happens, but at least we are honest. Your father will be furious. Probably. But I am tired of living in fear of his disapproval. I am 32 years old, and I have spent my entire life trying to be the son he wants instead of the man I actually am. Maybe it is time that changed. Jade looked up at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. I have never been more sure of anything, Blake said firmly. I love you, Jade. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was too scared. Too worried about complications and consequences. But hiding you, pretending you do not mean everything to me, that is worse than any corporate drama. Tears sprang to Jade's eyes. I love you too. So much, it terrifies me. Then let us be terrified together, but honestly, he kissed her forehead. Tomorrow morning, we tell my father. Together, whatever happens after, we face it as a team. The confrontation in Richard Harrison's office the next morning was as intimidating as Jade remembered from her one previous visit during new employee orientation. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with awards and photos with world leaders. Richard himself sat behind a massive desk, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents. I have that meeting with the board in 20 minutes. So this needs to be quick. Then he looked up and saw Jade standing beside his son. His eyes narrowed. Miss Monroe. I was not expecting you. Father, we need to talk to you about something important, Blake began, his hand finding Jade's and squeezing gently. Jade and I have been seeing each other for the past 6 weeks. We wanted you to hear it from us before the office rumors reach you. Richard's expression did not change, but something cold entered his eyes. I see. And did it occur to either of you that this relationship presents significant conflicts of interest? That it undermines both Miss Monroe's credibility and your own judgment? My credibility is based on my work, Jade said, finding her voice. I earned my promotion through the Morrison account, which Blake had no involvement in. Every project I have completed has been evaluated independently. That is not how it will be perceived, Richard said sharply. Perception matters in business, Miss Monroe. People will assume favoritism, regardless of the facts. Then they are wrong, Blake said firmly. Father, I have followed every rule you have ever set for me. I have sacrificed personal happiness for corporate expectations time and again. But Jade is not negotiable. I love her, and we are not hiding anymore. The Testrachard leaned back in his chair, studying them both. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, he spoke. Blake, do you remember when you were 12 and wanted to quit piano lessons? You said they were too hard, that you would never be good enough. Blake frowned, confused by the seeming non sequitur. Yes, I remember. I told you that anything worth doing required perseverance through difficulty, that the easy path was rarely the right one. Richard turned his attention to Jade. Miss Monroe, why did you come to Chicago? To build a career, sir? To prove that I could succeed in a competitive environment through my own abilities. And have you? Succeeded through your own abilities. Jade lifted her chin. Yes, sir. Every assignment I have completed, every client I have satisfied, every metric I have improved, I did that. Not Blake, not anyone else. Me. Richard nodded slowly. I believe you. Which is why I am not going to stand in the way of this relationship. Both Blake and Jade stared at him in shock. You are not, Blake asked. I said I would not stand in the way. I did not say I approved, Richard clarified. But I have watched you both these past weeks. You think I did not notice the way you look at each other in meetings? The way you have both been working harder than ever, as if trying to prove something? I am old, not blind. He stood, walking around the desk to face them directly. Here are my conditions. First, this relationship will be disclosed to HR and the board immediately. With proper documentation of Jade's independent performance reviews. Second, Jade will be transferred to a different department to eliminate direct reporting conflicts. Third, both of you will maintain absolute professionalism during work hours, no exceptions. What department? Jade asked nervously. Corporate strategy. They have been asking for someone with fresh marketing insights. The position is higher level than your current role, and the director reports to the CFO. It's not Blake. You will earn more money and have greater responsibilities. If you fail, it will be your own fault, not Blake's influence. The announcement that afternoon, a company-wide email went out from HR. It was professional, clinical, explaining that Blake Harrison and Jade Monroe had declared a personal relationship per company policy, that appropriate measures had been taken to ensure no conflicts of interest, and that both would continue in their respective roles with full expectation of professional conduct. Jade's phone exploded with messages. Monica sent a string of shocked emojis followed by, "Girl, we need to talk." Other colleagues sent congratulations, questions, and a few that were clearly fishing for gossip. Jade ignored most of them, focusing instead on the strategic brief Richard had given her for her new position. Blake found her at her desk at 6. It's after most people had left for the day. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I have no idea," Jade admitted. "This is not how I imagined today going. It's better or worse than expected." She considered. "Different. Your father surprised me. I thought he would be angrier." "He is angry, just in his own way," Blake said. "But he is also pragmatic. Fighting us would cause more problems than accepting it. And I think in his own way he respects that we came to him directly instead of letting him find out through gossip."